Hello everyone! Anyone who's watching, I don't know. It's been a long time since I did this, and I've redone everything. Currently streaming from, I've got my Mac open in front of me, which is what you can see here. And what I'm doing is I'm working on my second brain, which is, I'm just going to turn this ever so slightly. There we go. I'm going to keep my MVP award in the background. There we go. The second brain, I'm going to move this slightly, is this idea of you take all of your things that you need to remember, all of your appointments, all of your information, and you dump them into something which will help you to store them. Now, my current second brain obsession is Obsidian, and I'll show you why in a moment. Just get rid of that one because I don't need it. Yeah, so I'm currently using Obsidian as my second brain. What I'm doing is I'm dumping my... Today I'm going to be working on the notes I've taken whilst I've been reading. I'm going to put them into my second brain, link them all up, and I'll walk you through what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I'm doing this as a just chatting because I'm just literally chatting while I'm doing this. I'm not doing anything super duper important. So like I said, what I'm doing, I'm looking through my notes in my books and working through those. The current book that I'm looking through at the minute is called Ultralearning. So if I go to my Commonplace where I have all of my books, where are we? See if I can find it. What's this? Solo? No, it's before there. Science of Discworld. Ultralearning. Okay, so Ultralearning is a book by Scott H. Young, and it's all about reading and learning things. It's kind of a mixture between just-in-time learning and learning exactly the right amount of stuff that you need to. So just-in-time learning is this idea of you learn just what you need to know to fix the problem. We see this all the time in development. I've come across a problem. I'm going to go and then fix that problem by learning how to use jQuery or learning how to use just enough Angular to fix the problem. Well, with just-in-time learning for everything else, that's like I'm learning how to use a fork or whatever, or I'm learning how to make a roux when I'm cooking, right? Whereas versus learning how to cook all the things. Now, ultra learning is all about going deep with that learning and learning everything in context. And so I'm just going to boost this, actually. Boost it up to 12, I think. Yeah, hang on. It's been a long time since I did this, folks, so I do apologize. Drop this down. There we go. So now it should be a lot louder, a lot clearer. Right, so the idea is with ultra learning is to combine that just in time with the incredibly deep learning. This is something that developers do all the time. We just don't talk about it. Anyway, so what I'm doing with these is I'm going through and I'm adding some notes. So you can see here on the left hand side I've got some folders. I'm in the way here, so let me scroll this up for you. So this is my Commonplace Book. We'll talk about that in a moment. Books that I've read in 2022, organised by type. So there's biographies, business fiction, and self-development. There's loads of self-development books that I've been reading recently, and I'm currently working through Ultralearning. The way that I do it is that I have a, let's click on this one and go through to it. Command and click. There you go. So I have a single file. Let me see if I can zoom in. I've got a single file which has the quote, followed by any annotations that I have, any thoughts that I have on it. Let me see if I can find one with some of those thoughts for this file. There we go. So let's go with this. On the principle of directness. So here's the quote here. Those first covering the material is often essential to be... Right, I'm going to check that. This looks... Oh, right, okay, right. Hang on. This is why I do this. Right, so though first covering the material is often essential to begin. Jeez Louise. Begin. There. This is why I hand copy these out. A lot of my friends that I've seen who do this. Also, I don't have the chat on screen, so I'm going to open the chat in another window on my computer. So bear with me, just in case you are. If there is anyone there, I don't think there will be, but middle of the day stream, it's going to be no one here. You'll have to bear with me because I'm like multiple machines here. Right, let's have a look. Twitch.tv/Progman. Let's just make sure there's any, see if there's any chat here. I didn't think there would be, but I just wanted to make sure. Let's do a pop-out chat. How do I do that? Sure, I know how to do. Oh gosh, I get it. Yes, thank you, Twitch. I've got loads of pop-ups happening on my other screen telling me how to do chat stuff. So do I do chat like that? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to have the chat open on another screen because I'm mostly terrible at this. Right. So a lot of my friends who are devs go through this automatic process of as soon as they highlight something on their device, gets emailed to them or gets sent to them, and that's perfectly fine. That works well for them. Doesn't work well for me. I like to be able to reread through the notes that I'm taking, then I can see if it's important by itself as a nugget of information. So with this one, we've said that though first covering the material is often essential to begin doing practice, the principle of directness asserts that it's actually while doing the thing you want to get good at when much of the learning takes place. The exceptions to this rule are rarer than they may first appear, and therefore directness has been a thorny problem in the side of education for over a century. This is a point that Scott H. Young believes about jumping in and doing things. To be better at the thing, you've got to go do the thing, right? You can't get better at running by sitting on your couch and eating Doritos, right? So you got to go out and do it. So what I've done here is, here's the quote. Here is the date that I took it on. This is the book I took it from. And then this is my initial thought on it. You need to you want to get good at doing whatever, then go out and do whatever. It's the only way to get good at it, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm working my way through all of these, and then I'll show you how I link them up as well. So, what we got? You may need to create an artificial. Just need to catch up to. Yep. Okay. So we're here. So. Okay. So this is on immersion. This next one. So what I do is I go and create a new note over here. Right-click, new note on immersion. 2 S's. Nope. 1 S. Okay. And then the great thing about Obsidian is that I can create things from templates, right? So I've got a bunch of templates already set up. I've got author, annotation, a daily note, a book, an episode plan, partner in crime, podcast story, work on video, and a podcast. So I'm going to go with annotation. And this one is coming from Ultralearning. So it has this wiki links. There's another name for them, but I can't remember what it is, but it escapes me at the moment. But this way of forming a markdown like link with just 2 sets of square brackets. I'll talk about that in a moment, but this is all markdown, right? This is all plain text, which means that I can, if I want to, commit it to source control or whatever, and I can edit it wherever I am in the world, which is wonderful. So, language learning. Whoops, I put kerning. I have to be very careful with my typing today. Language learning is not the only place. Only place where you can apply immersion. Hopefully I'm not bashing the mic as I'm typing. Let's find out. I kind of am, aren't I? Right, let's drop that. Firstly, let's go filters and drop that back down. Down there, back to 9. There we go. I'll push that back there. So it's a little bit further back. I'm going to have to shout a little bit more, but that's fine. Joining communities. So I used to have my mic on a boom arm, but the boom, it was like almost like an elbow joint, several elbow joints, so I could arrange it however I wanted. 3 of the elbow joints, of the 2 elbow joints, both of them broke, and so I had one elbow joint coming off of the desk, one joint coming off the desk that was tight, would not move. Except it was the tightest it would go, and then it would just sort of like do this over time, which was annoying. So sorry for those of you who maybe I'm covering my mouth. Anyway, it would move over time, which was really annoying. And then the joint in the middle, it just completely gave out, and it would just sit flat. And then the joint just where I'm saying joint, but I mean like a what's it called? Yeah, joint. Yeah, so the joint where that was just below the mic. Would actually sit and move by itself over time, and so that eventually just fell to pieces. So I've currently got the mic stood on my desk, which is not too bad, except that the desktop that I'm using to do the stream has a very loud fan in it, so you're probably getting some vibrations from the fan coming up through the desk into the mic. So for that, I apologise. Where are we? Joining communities of people who are. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that there. If it'll stay there. Haha. Right. Well, actively. Oh gosh. Active. the engaged in learning can have a similar impact since it encourages constant exposure to new ideas and challenges. I threw this together at the last minute. If I'd have thought about this a little more, I would have maybe got some music that I could play in the background, but I'm not doing that at the moment. Maybe next time, folks. Maybe next time. Anyway, so what do I like about this? Essentially, this is saying brackets to me that as they... Why did that stop? That should have kept playing. Actually, I put the one on. Right, okay. Let's go like that. To be in the same position. I.e. constantly learning from those around them who may be further in their learning journey. I'm not very good at typing. I need to let you know about that, folks. Not very good at typing at all. Cool. Okay, I'm okay with that. So then I've created this note which lives in this Ultralearning folder. So I've got this this file that is just about the book itself. As you can see, I've got a link here that I've got with the individual author. A little tag here so that I can say that it's an author. Backlinks back to the actual file. So this is wiki style quickie links, whatever you want to call them. That's the double square brackets creates a standard link without you having to put text in front of it and all that kind of stuff. But these ones are different kinds of links. So what I can do with these, I'm not sure what the name of these are, but if I put bang, double open bracket, select the file, it links to it, but also dumps the contents of it right there. Right, so that kind of helps with keeping everything all pulling the information in from different places. And I can show you that in action in a moment, but let me just get to the end of these. Okay, so what's this next one? Careful analysis and deliberate practice forms the basis of the fourth Ultralearning principle, drill. Okay, so this is on drill and deliberate practice. Cool. Give myself some audio. So for people do annotation. Interesting, fantastic. I just got a note from my editor. One of the next episodes of the .NET Core podcast is on the drive. That means he's finished working on it, which is fantastic. Squidge, I love you. You're brilliant at what you do, and you really are. So that's oh gosh, this is episode 118 of the .NET Core podcast, which is looking like it's going to come out. I've got it over here on March 17th. So today is December 16th. I just got a note from the editor telling me that the March 17th episode is already out. Fantastic. All ready to go out. I'm going to send him a thumbs up because he's blooming brilliant at what he does. Can I send that without connecting the keyboard? That's really annoying. Let's just cut that. And I'm just going to do a reaction thumbs up. Sorry. Right, back to it. We're over here now. Yes, okay. So this is careful analysis and deliberate practice forms the basis for the fourth Ultralearning principle, drill. How many L's is that? That's one L. Okay. Deliberate practice is something that something that I'm quite passionate about. Oops, it mentioned in this book makes me happy. That makes me believe that, oh gosh, I should be reinforces. I don't know if that's spelled correctly. We'll just have to deal with it. My thoughts on its place in learning. Yeah. Still getting used to using macOS. It's me. It's not anything else. There we go. Reinforces my thoughts on the place of deliberate practice in everyday learning. DP is the process of finding the next toughest bit of the thing you want to learn and focusing on that until it becomes almost second nature. The idea is that you can break the learning of a thing down to lots of small tasks and focus on them one at a time. So, interesting thing about that is that I have, hopefully the window's going to, yep, okay. I actually have a blog post about that from ages ago. So we're going to link to that too. Because it's markdown, we can just link to anything anywhere, right? And I even misspelt it. Did I misspell it? Yeah, I did. You see, this is the thing, right? I'm not very good at spelling things. Deliberate practice. Oh gosh. Practice. Didn't even get it vaguely right there. Practice. Okay. I have written a blog post about this. When did I write this book? 2018. I had written? No, oh gosh. Right. Wrote a blog post about this back in 2018. The importance of deliberate practice. Ugh. Typo in the title. I wonder if, right, hang on. No, okay. So that only works with locals. Okay, that's fine. Cool. I'm happy with that. So let's put that in here. So again, double brackets after a bang, and then voila. And then it's got that all there. Ooh, my air freshener just went off. Lovely. Right, get rid of that. Get rid of that. Cool. Right, next quote. Direct practice involves working on a whole skill nearest to the situation in which it will be used. Drills are a pull in the opposite direction. A drill takes the practice and cuts it apart, so that you are practicing only on an isolated component. Okay, no, I get that. Right, let's talk about that then. So that's drill versus direct. So this is drill versus direct practice. Whoops. Put the template in here, go with the annotation, up to the top, put in Ultralearning. 6. Yeah, these are notes that I took ages ago. I think I've put the wrong note, the wrong date on this one. Yep, this should have been 24. It really doesn't matter, but it's good to be specific about these things. Right, how's my battery doing? 65%. Cool. I'm using one of those M2 Mac Airs. So Mac Air is M2, and it looks like and feels like the battery lasts for days, which is wonderful. It's not the M2 that's doing the video encoding for the stream. It's the video for this is being fed into another computer, which is doing all of that for us. So there you go. Where are we? So we are doing... Nope. I did get that date right. 27. Great thing about this is it has its own like change tracker built in as well. It's not brilliant, but it also has its own change tracker built in. I don't tend to rely on it, but there you go. Direct practice involves working on a whole skill nearest to the situation in which it will eventually be used. Drills are a pull in the opposite direction. A drill takes direct practice and cuts it apart so that you are practicing. I've put an S in there, haven't I? Yep. Don't know why I think that practice has an S in it, but there you go. Practicing only an isolated component. Okay. Direct, no. Drill here can also mean deliberate practice. Okay. The point being made here is that that direct practice is applying the knowledge and skills in the real situation. So an example would be playing a practice game of a sport, a NFL. The person practicing is in a simulation of a real game and has to work holistically to apply all of their knowledge and skill to the entire game. Contrast that to a drill or deliberate practice, where the person is working only on a specific skill for a skill specific to a certain situation. For example, they could be practicing a certain play or catching the ball. Cool. I'm happy with that. Whoops. Forgot that you got the stats bar. Right, okay. Drill versus direct practice. Nice. So, far from being try this again. Far from being meaningless drudgery, Carefully designed drills elicit creativity and imagination as you strive to solve a more complex learning challenge by breaking it into specific parts. Great. Okay, so this is on breaking and on drills and smaller parts. Yeah, that'll do. Templates and no, not an author. Undo that. Template annotation. Excellent. Anyone who is watching this, if you are watching indeed, you're getting a sneak preview into the Commonplace book that I'm going to be giving out as part of my CPD. So for those who don't know, I work for a company called RJJ Software, and every year I put out a blog post called CPD and then the year that's involved. And the idea behind this is that I'm always trying to learn new things anyway, and I'm watching videos, reading books, all that kind of stuff. And what I try to do, if I can find them, there we go. Here's my CPD post from 2021. Whoops. As long as I can drag it over here. Is it going to drag over there? Nope. Nope. Well, that's a bit naff. I know what I'll do. Copy that. Copy that. Ah, that's annoying. Oh no, let me bring this window over. I don't know. It's being weird. Anyway, I'll put a link in the chat eventually. But essentially what I do is I talk through 10-15 books that I've read in the year that I feel like have boosted my skills in some way, shape or form. And what I do is I spend about 2 or 3 days writing up a blog post trying to remember what was really important about each book. But the idea with this is that I'm going to use my Commonplace book to try and come up with most of the blog posts. So that's why I'm writing these up. But there you go. Far from being meaningless drudgery. Whoops. Drudgery. There's a D in there. There we go. Carefully designed drills elicit creativity and imagination as you strive to solve a more complex learning challenge by breaking it into specific parts. Fantastic. Again, more deliberate practice. So the idea with this is that by taking some huge chunk of a thing you want to learn, slicing it up into smaller pieces, you can then start making logical connections between how things work. And so, for instance, if you are, I'm going to pick something that's completely out of my, if you're learning dev and you want to learn how to write a message to the screen, you focus on learning the equivalent of console.log or console.writeline or printf, and then you can, when you start learning about what a string is, you can then connect those two thoughts. I'm passing a string into console.log, into console.writeline, into printf, into cout. I'm passing something along. With cout, you then learn about streams. So you're creating an object called cout, streaming something in. So you stream out, so you'll go from, for instance, if you're using C++, I didn't think that was going to work. CPP? Doesn't matter. You might go cout, whoops. Hello world, whoops, and then you might do an end line as well. So then that, cool, it worked. So that's, you need to learn about cout, you need to learn about streams, you need to learn about strings. Whereas in C#, you could go console.writeline, whoops, hello world, and in the early versions of C#, this, whoops, this would just be a wrapper around that, but it's no longer the case. But But in order to learn the, so you, what I'm saying is you learn the console.writeLine, you put some brackets, you give it some stuff, it will eventually print it out. Then you can learn about strings, and then you can say, well, I'm passing it a string, and you might say, well, oh, what about if I learn about ints and string interpolation? You know about strings, you can then eventually move up in the world and say some int, that'll, you know, if var some int equals 3, that will then print off hello world 3, because it's interpolating those strings. But then you need to be able to fully understand what this is doing. You need to know what console.writeLine is, so that means you need to know what a class is and a method is. You need to know what a string is, you need to know what an int is, and then you need to know what string interpolation is. Once you've got all of those things, that's breaking that huge problem of write hello world 3 on the screen down into the smallest possible chunks, and that's how you build it up. And so that's what they're talking about here. So I'm going to get rid of all of this, don't need it. This is what a good, I need to put good first, teacher does, whoops, alongside the enthusiasm for your growth. The requirement of correcting you when you get it wrong. Cool. Essentially, that's what a teacher does. So we're going to link this over here. Fantastic. Go back there. The great thing about this is I could actually start typing the title, but one of the latest updates to Obsidian will list all of these. These are the files that I've touched in like the most recent order. I don't know. Cool. Let's have a look at the active. So the next note is the act of trying to sum up knowledge from memory is a powerful learning tool on its own, beyond its connection to direct practice or feedback. Okay, so that's sitting and thinking about what it is you've learned, putting it into your own words. So on recall as a learning tool. Cool. I don't know why I put a D on the end there, but not much I can do about it now, except for to do that, and that will rename it. Template, annotation. The great thing about this, right, I'll link something and then I'll rename a file and we'll see what happens, because it will do all of the remapping for me. It's brilliant. So this was 0627. I've put 05 because I'm a Wally. 27. Fantastic. Right. Okay. The act of trying to summon again. In future, I will put some copyright-free background music in here. I was going to pull in the chill hop stuff because that's what I'm actually listening to right now. My bone conduction headphones on, and I'm actually listening through. I can't show you. I was going to try and drag the window in and show you, but I am actually listening to a 13-hour-long playlist that I've got of chill hop music that I've bought from the chill hop people, and you should totally check them out. Knowledge from memory is a powerful learning tool on its beyond its connection to direct practice. All right, practice or feedback. So I have two thoughts on this. One, which is actually sitting for a moment and thinking about what you've learned is a fantastic way of reinforcing the lesson of the day. Let's say I'm learning some complex algebraic formula, right? And I take a test and I do it and I'm brilliant. I pass the test. Sitting and reflecting on what it is that I've learned and how I've managed to apply that to something will help me to reinforce the learning. But also taking a test or whatever and then failing and then I'll put a B on the end of that, and then reflecting on that to be able to actually say to myself, right, why did I fail at remembering this? What is it that I didn't get? Then going back and reconnecting those thoughts is another way of reinforcing that learning. And so So there's two ways of checking whether you've learned something. And one is to test yourself. Fantastic. The other one is to sit and think about what it is that this thing is and how it works. So this is a fantastic way of reinforcing your thoughts and thoughts and learning by focusing on what you've learned and thinking about how it might apply to other things, or the way in which you learned it can help to reinforce the lessons and teachings. Another example, right? Okay, I use this example all the time. If I'm talking about Japanese sentence structure, it's a little bit like English sentence structure, but the tail end of it is flipped over. So, for instance, the canonical example I always give is, I watched the TV, right? English, that's subject, verb, object. So you're saying I'm the subject. Watched, to watch is the verb. I am doing something. This is what I'm doing. And then object, the thing that I'm doing to it, or the thing that I'm doing it to, the TV. I watched the TV, right? In Japanese, you would say the TV watched, which again is kind of Englishy in its sort of ye olde poetic way of saying it. But you would say watashi terebi o mimasu, which means watashi me, terebi TV, omimasu means to watch in a continuous manner. If I wanted to make it past tense, I would say mimashita. So I have watched, but I've now finished. Watashi terebi o mimashita means I previously watched the TV. Again, by applying that knowledge, right, and thinking about it for a second, I can then see how English is thrown together, or perhaps how German is thrown together, or perhaps how Korean is thrown together, or any other language at all. Or even I can think about how mathematics works, and how the different things that are thrown together in the grammar of mathematics, in the grammar of computer programming, in the grammar of whatever, storytelling, whatever, right? You're able to then throw those together. So I really like that. And then that can lead to these serendipitous moments. This can lead to serendipitous moments of inspiration or creativity when I was going to put an ersatz thought, but no, when a thought leads, when an unconnected thought is brought into the learning. Cool. I'm sure I'll forget what I meant by that, but there you go. I didn't want to say ersatz because that's way too much for me. I would then have to look up the meaning of ersatz, but then that then reinforces the lesson of what ersatz means. See? Okay, right. New note. I will tell you, on laying the road works. Keep doing that. Oh, no. Template annotation. Right, cool. Ultralearning, it's from June even. January, February, March, April, May, June, yeah. Okay, 27th. I flew through this book in about a day. And, whoops, I thought I had caps lock on. Let's get rid of that. An analogy here is that trying to retrieve an answer that doesn't yet exist in your mind is like laying down a road leading, no, layering, alright, don't think that's a word, but there you go, leading to a building that hasn't been constructed yet. Destination doesn't exist. Destination unknown. But the path to get there, to get where it will be once constructed, is developed regardless. So what Jung is talking about here is you look at the question. So the idea is you look at a question that you don't know how to answer. You find the question, you say, I don't have the ability to answer this question, don't have the skill, the knowledge, the experience, whatever it is, to be able to answer this. But then you take a moment and you think about how you would get to that answer. So you know that, for instance, you know, I'm a bass guitar player. So I hear a new piece of music. I'm like, I don't know how to play this. But if I was going to play it, what do I need to learn about it? So I might need to learn what key it's in. I may need to learn what transitions, what style or genre of music it's in. Maybe the beats per minute that it uses. That all of these things will help me to get to the answer. They lay the roadworks to get there, so that once I've learnt the answer, once I know which notes to play, I already have all of the information that leads to it, and so I could focus on the actual getting of the answer. Building the answer, building the building that needs to be there that represents the answer. I don't have to worry about the infrastructure in connecting it. And guess what? That's how your brain works. You have neurons, you've got axons and dendrites on either side, and the way that every time you learn a new fact, your brain reinforces that fact by keeping it in your head. Memories, facts, all that kind of thing, by building more connections to something. So if you can lay the groundwork of where those connections are going to be before you've got the thing to connect to it, well, you've got 90% of the way there. So this is learning on easy mode. Okay. I don't think I need some thoughts on this. I'm happy with that. Cool. There we go. Laying the roadworks. It's probably the really bad way to call it, but there you go. So what have we got here? If you need to recall something later, you're best off practicing retrieving it. I mean, that just stands to reason, right? On practicing retrieval. Yeah. Okay. Template. Annotation. Right. Ultralearning. 627? Yeah, 27. Okay. So this is, I need a capital I. If you need to recall something later, you're best off practicing practicing retrieving it. Without that second E. Oh, without the B. Retrieving it. Excellent. So the thought here is that if you need to be able to remember this piece of information, sit and try and remember it. That's brilliant. An example being that when I last went to Japan, it had been years since I'd actually talked with anyone in Japanese, and so my ability to remember all of the knowledge, or remember the vocabulary, fell out of my head. But because of the idea of immersion, within 3 or 4 days, maybe just even 24 hours, certain things were coming back to me because my brain was like, you need to be able to, I'll move, this isn't how it works, but I'll move the information from the back of your head to the front of your head, where it can be, this isn't how it works, folks. But you could think of it as it's a metaphor, it's an analogy, right? It's a truthy statement rather than truthful. Have a sip of that lovely clear liquid. Now then, so this makes perfect sense. Once a thing has been remembered, it will need to be retrieved before it can be useful. Immersion can help with the retrieval, but so can sitting and retrieving it yourself. Perhaps a little mindfulness meditation combined with actively trying to remember the lesson of the day whilst meditating could help. This is brilliant because I want to actually boost my own meditation practice. So maybe I will spend a little time every day just trying to remember a thing that I used to be able to recall. Maybe a phrase, maybe a word, maybe you know, standard scales, you know, like a C. What is a C major scale? It's, you know, C, A, B, D, E, you know, that kind of thing, right? What, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? So obviously it took me a moment to remember that correctly. Apparently I can't remember the letters of the alphabet, but, you know, maybe spending some time trying to remember those is a good idea. There you go. Rather than, you know, spend a little time just listening to your own thoughts, listening to your being present in the moment, but then perhaps spend some time just trying to recall something that you used to know. The obvious things you choose to master, and others you satisfy yourself with knowing that you've got. Yeah. Okay. So this is about choosing what to remember, because just remembering things is pretty cool, but when you're doing Ultralearning, you're learning stuff specifically for with a specific goal in mind. Everyone should always be, if you're learning something, you should always have a goal in mind for that learning, right? Because otherwise you're just going to flounder and go round and round in circles. But the point that Jung is making here is that remembering every single asset of a single thing is going to be really, really hard. In fact, what I'm going to do before I carry on, I'm just going to turn the LED on my camera, because it's doing my head in that it isn't on. It is on. Fair enough. Okay. Apparently I can't turn the LED on. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm futzing around, not really focusing on the point. There is no way that you can remember absolutely everything, or rather, you can remember everything. Your brain has this infinite capacity for storage, which is wonderful, but you don't have infinite capacity for studying. That's the dichotomy, right? You've got infinite capacity for storage. You can store as much things as you put into your head. You or I will likely never run out of space. Those who have tried probably have, I don't know. But for the majority of people, you never actually run out of space in your hard drive, right? The problem's going to be you don't have all the time in the world to put the information in to your hard drive. So you have to pick and choose the bits that actually make sense to you. So you need to pick and choose the bits that you are happy to remember, that are core to your being, your ability to actually use this information, and the information that is that you're happy with just being able to go, do you know what, I'm going to Google that because that doesn't sound right. Yeah? Okay, so let me just move this, because I just had a thing on screen. So let's write this out. There will always be some things you choose to master, and others you satisfy, yeah, without a Y, satisfy yourself with knowing you can look up if needed, if you need to, yeah, if you need to. Okay, so the example here is I don't know off the top of my head the formula for converting from Celsius to Fahrenheit. There's absolutely no need for that to be in my brain, so it's been jettisoned. Okay, how to spell practice is something that I've somehow jettisoned out of my head, but it's not really required for me for my day-to-day work and my learning. Really, I should learn to spell practice. Practice, right? You would hope that by now, that I've typed it out 3 times, it might be somewhere in the cortex of my head. It's rearranging the I don't know. But the point is that whatever it is you're learning, there'll always be some parts that you don't need to remember. You don't need to remember, for instance, that the C# compiler expects the input files to always be encoded in UTF-16, which is technically Unicode, which technically means that emoji work in C# listings. You don't need to remember that. It's pointless to remember. All I remembered is that the C# compiler expects the files to be UTF-16 encoded. From that, I can extrapolate that UTF-16 is Unicode, which means emoji are acceptable in C# listings. I don't need to remember that. I don't need to remember the order in which the compiler will link things together and do things, because I don't work on compilers. I can if I want to, if I choose to, but I don't choose to. So this THSI. This makes perfect sense. As a person, we have an almost infinite capacity for storing knowledge in our brains, but what we don't have is infinite time to input that information into our brains. So if we want to truly learn the important parts of a thing, we need to choose what the important parts to those are and focus on them. There's another blog post which supports this, so let's link that. Safari, and it's opened over here. That's annoying. That's really annoying. It's opened over here. Hanselman, how do you know all this? There's a brilliant, how do you even know all this crap? There we go. There's a brilliant blog post by Scott Hanselman, related Hanselman blog post. Yikes. The blog post is called, how do you even know this crap? And the whole point of that, he talks about how there will be things that you just pick up. You just pick them up, and for some reason they go in and they stay in. But he also talks about how there will be things that you don't need to remember, that you don't look up, because you don't need to remember them. And it's a very important thing to remember, is that you don't need to know everything about a subject in order to be an expert in it, right? My friend Danny is studying to get his PhD, working towards getting his PhD in electronic engineering. Now, if you went to him and said, okay, what's a resistor? He'll tell you what a resistor is. But if you went to him and said, talk to me about Bluetooth, he'd be able to give you a little bit of information about Bluetooth, like on a lower level than I can. Like, he will jump into, like, you know, it's a bunch of resistors, capacitors, and aerials that are set up with a certain frequency to be able to blast information, and he'll be able to talk to you about that. But he won't know, like, the next level down. He knows just enough to be able to answer that question for himself. Whereas if you ask him about what he's putting together for his PhD thesis, he'll talk you to death. It's a really bad way of putting it. He'll talk to you until the cows come home, because he really does. He focuses on what he's learning, not on the. He's focusing on the thing that he needs to learn to get to the next step, not learning everything there is about electronic engineering. So there you go. Anyway, I generally recommend faster feedback. This enables a quicker recognition of mistakes. However, there's a possible risk that this recommendation might backslide into getting feedback before you've tried your best to answer the question or solve the problem on hand. Getting feedback. Oh, I got feedback on those E's. Right, template. Annotation. I'm going to do Ultralearning. I've marked this as chat, and I haven't really encouraged anyone to come along and chat with me, but there you go. I generally recommend faster feedback. This enables a quicker recognition. There's a possibility, a possible risk, risk that this recommendation might backslide into getting feedback. I love this. I'll talk about why in a moment. Feedback before you've tried your best to answer the question or solve the problem at hand. Okay, think about it this way, right? Think about it this way. Would you rather get feedback from a driving lesson at the end of the lesson, or as soon as you make a mistake? It could be that you made a mistake 10 minutes in and continued to make that mistake, or even build more mistakes upon it afterwards. So yeah, it's much better to get that feedback immediately, because by getting the feedback immediately, you can work on it. But you also need to have a good try at answering the question or solving the problem. For instance, okay, so going back to development, right? If I'm writing some software and I get stuck and then just immediately throw my hands in the air and go, I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to stop, I'm not going to get anywhere. But if I try and solve the problem before actually stop, this is it now. Obviously, Young here is talking about feedback. I'm talking about getting through a solution, but the ideas are still the same. When you get stuck, you're going to ask someone for help, right? Which is kind of like feedback. And so, yeah, it's really important to actually take a moment and see, to try and solve it before asking for feedback. If you're in a music, if you're in a music situation, you might give up and ask the teacher, how do I play this? I can't play this. It's not humanly possible. And then they'll give you some feedback and try. You gotta always try. Getting feedback. I love it. That's a brilliant little quote. Fear of receiving feedback can often hold you back more than anything. By throwing yourself into a high-intensity, rapid feedback situation, you may initially feel uncomfortable. It's gone off the screen, so I'm going to have to push the button. No! I just went and deleted that one. Oh well. Let's see if I can find it again. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I should have written it down anyway. Get rid of that one. That one doesn't make sense by itself. This is the other reason why I manually go through my my notes once I've made them, because I just found a note there that didn't make sense by itself. Go up another one. Oh gosh. Yeah, here we go. Where are we? Vivid, meaningful things are more easily recalled than banal or arbitrary information. I have a personal allegory, which, yes, absolutely. Meaningful things. Whoops. On meaningful things and recall. Move the mouse pointer out of the way. Template. Annotation. Let's get this annotated, and then we'll talk through 26, 27. Right. Oh wait, hang on. No, that's right. Vivid. Oh. There we go. Meaningful things are more easily recalled than banal or arbitrary. Yeah. Arbitrary. Yep. Information. Cool. Right, okay. The sky is blue. That's boring. You don't need to remember that. You just look out the window. What is it? A squared plus B squared. No. C squared equals A squared. The C squared equals the square root of A squared plus B squared. Whatever it is. Right? These things, right, don't need to remember them unless you need to remember it for your daily work, your daily practice. Because it's banal and meaningless and arbitrary, you ain't going to remember it. It's going to be harder for you to actually force arbitrary or banal information into your head. You need to have a personal drive, a personal reason for learning it. And sometimes the nugget itself, you don't have the reason to learn it by itself, but the nugget is required for these things here. Let me do it here. These things here. Now, because these things here require it, it no longer becomes banal or arbitrary because it's connected to these things up here. So, arbitrary information are harder to store, simply to remember, simply because they are arbitrary. Look at that, I spelled it right 3 times. Okay, I always struggle with arbitrary. I bet I've misspelled it there. That just stands to reason. Connecting a banal or arbitrary piece of information to a non-arbitrary piece will help with recall. Yeah, I used to do this all the time when I was a teacher. I used to force serendipitous bits of boringness to be thrown out of the way so you remember the exciting thing. I remember one time, I can't say the person's name, but I remember one time I was teaching a student, I was teaching a class about loads of things to do with circles. And what I did was I used to get them to create posters at the end of the lesson. Show me what you've learned. This one student got up, was poster there for everyone to see. They walked out of the room. I was like, what are you doing? You got to come back. You can't leave now. You got to tell us what you got to do. Anyway, he walks out of the room, closes the door. Next thing we know, he's kicked the door in. He runs towards the poster, does a forward flip, lands like this and goes, right, so here's what I learned today. Because he was being silly because he needed to get some energy out. But I will guarantee everyone else in that classroom remembers what he was talking about to this day. Because it wasn't banal and arbitrary. He knew. Also, he was bored. But there you go. Go back here and get rid of these extra spaces there. Cool. Uh, yeah, okay. This is on cramming, on not cramming template. Annotation, set this up and then I'll read it to you and then I'll type it out. Ultralearning, move that mouse pointer out of the way. 06, 27, 28. Okay, so this quote is, if you have 10 hours to learn something, therefore it makes more sense to spend 10 days studying 1 hour each than to spend 10 hours studying in one burst. The reason for this is a whole bunch of reasons. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but one of them is concentration. You can only concentrate for about 45 minutes to an hour at a time when you're trying to concentrate on something you want to take in. When you're trying your hardest to learn the thing, you'll only get about 45 minutes to an hour, then you'll have to stop. That's it. There'll be no more learning for you because you've dropped off, you've lost your concentration. So trying to study for 10 hours straight ain't gonna happen. I'm sorry, but it ain't gonna happen. There's no way you're gonna sit down in a chair with your wonderful, even if you've got like a reading nook and some light wonderful music and some cozy setup and all that, you're gonna fall asleep is what you're gonna do. You're sitting in a nice warm corner in a nice lovely chair, you're gonna fall asleep after 5 hours, after 3 hours. I would say after 2, you're gonna fall asleep. So there's no point in trying to cram. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They wait until the day before the exam and then try to cram everything in. It's not gonna work. It's not going to work. It may work for 5 or 10 people, but it ain't going to work for everyone. And so, yeah, plan your study out. Plan your study time out. If you've got 10 days in which to learn something, then split, do an hour every day. Do half an hour every day. Because if you were to compare yourself to someone, because you also have, if you're cramming the day before, you've got the stress of, I've got the test tomorrow. Whereas if you're spending half an hour learning something today, you can get to the end of that session. You don't have to stop at half an hour. You get to the end of that session, you can go, maybe I'll do an extra 20 minutes. Or maybe that's a great time for you to use your meditation and your retrieval practice to actually sit there and go, right, what did I learn today? And maybe write out what you've learned today. Like, today I learned this thing and this is how it's connected. And then you dump it in your second brain and you've got that backup, right? Anyway. If you have 10 hours to learn something, therefore it makes more sense to spend 10 days studying 1 hour each than to spend 10 hours studying in one, that says on, in one burst. Cool. Makes sense. Cramming gets you nowhere because there's stress involved in cramming. Plus, you can focus on the actual act of retaining the information when calm and collected. And I'm going to put that in, there we go. You can extend where you want or need to during a session. Studying in your own way, in your own time, with your own schedule. Well, there we go. Cool. Studying in your own time to your own schedule will always beat cramming, because cramming is never going to work. Never ever going to work. Oh gosh. On continual learning. Cool. Template annotation. I wish I could turn off those little tooltips that show up. They're not useful for my workflow. They are useful for other people, but not for me. Right, okay. Learning isn't something done once and once. Oh gosh. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Once and then ignored. There we go. But a process that continues for your entire life. In fact, at schools, colleges and universities here in the UK, they no longer talk about learning, they talk about lifelong learning. This goes hand in hand with life, with the idea of lifelong learning. The idea that you never stop learning, and oh gosh, learning, and that you need techniques to be able to retain and retrieve information. I'm in a very lucky, privileged position in that my learning and my ability to retain and recall information works in the way that everyone else's does. Whereas there are some people in my life that I know personally who don't. One person I know doesn't have short-term memory. Just doesn't exist because of a whole bunch of things that happened during the birthing process. They just don't have short-term memory. And so when they need to learn something new, they have to literally sit and force it into long-term memory by doing continual learning on the spot, by doing continual retrieval on the spot, by doing deliberate practice on the spot. They sit and they think, right, okay, so a squared equals b squared, a squared plus b squared equals c 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 squared, constantly until it goes in, until they feel confident that it's gone in. But once it's in, that particular person can remember it forever. And so I'm kind of lucky in that my learning pathways in my brain work like most other people, in that I'm not neurodivergent in that way. It's probably the wrong phrase, and I apologize. That's my unintentional ignorance coming through. I don't know the correct word or phrase to use there, but I've used a word and phrase, and I hope that it's come through okay. So, what was the last one? Continual learning. So we move on. And as you can see, this one note for this book is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've added, this is one of my I'll show you my templates later. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But we'll get to you'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. Okay, intuition sounds magical, but the reality may be more banal. Jung loves the word banal. The product of a large volume of organized experience dealing with the problem. So when you see someone and they come up with an idea out of left field, it's not really out of left field. They're using their intuition. And intuition requires experience. Right, spell intuition. Okay. And experience. Oh gosh, experience. There we go. I'm dreadful at typing, but there you go. Annotation, no. Ultralearning. There we go. 06, 20, 28. Okay, cool. Hey, we're getting towards the end of these notes. Intuition sounds magical, but the reality may be more banal. The product of a large volume of volumen. All right, right in German, of organized with a Z experience dealing with the problem. Senior physicians do this all the time with their more junior colleagues. I think it was without the A, yeah. Alright, I'll tell you what, let's look it up. No, I spelled it right. Excellent. macOS has a dictionary built in. All operating systems have dictionaries built in, but it's exposed. Sometimes some of their decisions look like magic and can be explained as intuition, but really it's just experience. And we can have that too if we spend the time to gain some of that experience with the problem at hand. Okay. Intuition and experience. Unlikely we'll have to drop off in about 10 minutes, but there we go. We'll see if we can get through these. The challenge of thinking you understand something you don't. Let me try that again. The challenge of thinking you understand something you don't is unfortunately a common one. Researcher Rebecca Lawson calls this the illusion of explanatory depth. When you think you know about something, but you don't. Sounds an awful like Bayer Madenhof, doesn't it? Oh, it's got a semicolon. I typed the wrong character. There we go. I really... Oh, nope. Ah, that's what I did last time. Okay. Ultralearning. 0628. Oh, that's 29. Nope, 28. Nope, 29. Ah! The challenge... Thinking you understand something you don't is, oh, yep. Fortunately, a common one. Researcher, oh gosh. Yeah. It's almost too easy to claim that you understand something. Whoops. Oh gosh. You don't. Side note here. A wise person always admit that they don't know. I'm also going to see if I can find a source for illusion of explanatory depth. I'll copy that and go over here, go to the web. Boom. Filler description of Oh, interesting. It picked up that it was an H2. Fantastic. Okay, cool. There we go. Believing you know something that you don't. Fantastic. Oh, I've got a... That's closed brackets there. Get rid of it. When it's not possible to imagine an appropriate example that's evidence that you don't... Oh, okay. I missed out reading the comma. When it's not possible to imagine an appropriate example, that's evidence that you don't understand something well enough and would benefit from going back a few steps and learning the material better before continuing. I like that. I'm going to make this the last one. I'm in no way finished with this. Knowing when to step back. Template. Not a daily note, you dingus. Annotation, there we go. Okay, Ultralearning. 6. 29. Okay. When it's not possible to imagine an appropriate example, that's evidence that you don't understand something well enough and would benefit from going back a few steps and learning the material better before it's always a good idea to reflect. It's always a good idea to reflect on your your learning when you have when you have finished a study session. Reflecting on the knowledge. Reflecting on the knowledge gained and skills acquired can be incredibly enlightening and can help us to focus when we focus our efforts on the next step. This can sometimes mean stepping 2 P's, stepping back and focusing harder on the learning of the day. Cool. Yep. So that's all of those added. I'm going to go back. So remember, I've been adding these on here, knowing when to step back. So what's great about this is I'm adding these to my Commonplace book, and you'll notice that as soon as I've started adding these Ultralearning things here, they've started to show up here. I'm practicing realistic environments on immersion. I'm sure that immersion was one of the things that we did first, and you can see automatically they've all been added in. Now the great thing about this is I can push a button and actually get all of my Commonplace book with all of the links and everything into one PDF and dumped to disk, which is fantastic, which I will be doing for anyone who then reads through my CPD blog post later this year in the next week or so. Yeah, it'll probably be in a week. I tend to do it before the end of the year, so I'm going to spend most of next week preparing it, if I get the time. Yes, and if you want to read through my entire Commonplace Book. I'm going to be giving it away as part of that blog post. Once the blog post is live, I will be promoting it in places and getting people to read it. But if you want the Commonplace Book, you're going to have to read the blog post and get in touch, and I will send it out. And basically, you get my cliff notes of all of the books I've read this year, why I read them, why I think these points are important, and my explanations and expansions on these ideas as I've been reading through them. And if you're looking down the left hand side, just above my head and just below my head, you get an idea of some of the books that I've read this year. So that's where we're going to go, and I think that's where we're going to end it. So what I'm going to say is, if you have been watching and lurking, I haven't got the chat on screen, so I haven't been able to see. Thanks for watching. Anyway, see you later.